Gopijana Ballabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Ballabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Ramana Tiro Vanachari Ramana-tira vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivācakacārya Statera Sata Sri Srimad Chidandi Goswami Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivācakacārya Statera Sata Sri Srimad Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Shri Mayapur Dham ki jai, Ganga Mai ki jai, Jamun Mai ki jai, Tulsi Maharani ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Grantharaj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveta Bhakti Vrindi ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, I hope I have the right verse, because I was given one verse, but I think we're doing 29, is that correct? Okay, yeah. Indra-ādayo bāhava āhur usrāḥ. karṇau diśaḥ śrotram amuṣya śabdaḥ. nāsatya-dasrau paramasya nāse. ghrāṇo gandho mukham agnir iddhaḥ. indrādayo bāhava usrāḥ. karṇau diśaḥ śrotram amuṣya śabdaḥ. nāsatya-dasrau paramasya nāse. ghrāṇo gandho mukham agnir iddhaḥ. Others? Indra-ādayo bāhava. Ladies, indra-ādayaḥ, demigods headed by the heavenly king, Indra. Bāhavaḥ, arms. Āhuḥ are called. Usrāḥ, the demigods. karṇau, the ears. Diśaḥ, the four directions. Śrotram, the sense of hearing. Amuṣya, of the Lord. śabdaḥ, sound. nāsatya-dasrau, the demigods known as the Aśvinī-kumāras. Paramasya, of the Supreme. Nāse, nostrils. ghrāṇaḥ, the sense of smell. Asya, of him. Gandhaḥ, fragrance. Mukham, the mouth. Agnir, fire. Iddhaḥ, blazing. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. His arms are the demigods headed by Indra. The 10 directional sides are his ears. And physical sound is his sense of hearing. His nostrils are the 2 Aśvinī-kumāras. And material fragrance is his sense of smell. His mouth is the blazing fire. Purport. The description of the gigantic form of the personality of Godhead made in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is further explained here in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The description in the Bhagavad Gita 11:30 runs as follows, quote, "O Vishnu, I see you devouring all people in your blazing mouths and covering all the universe by your immeasurable rays, scorching the worlds. You are manifest." In that way, Srimad Bhagavatam is the postgraduate study for the student of the Bhagavad Gita. Both of them are the science of Krishna, the absolute truth, and so they are interdependent. The conception of the Virat Purusha, or the gigantic form of the Supreme Lord, is said to include all the dominating demigods, as well as the dominated living beings. Even the minutest part of a living being is controlled by the empowered agency of the Lord. Since the demigods are included in the gigantic form of the Lord, worship of the Lord, whether in his gigantic material conception or in his eternal transcendental form as Lord Sri Krishna, also appeases the demigods and all the other parts and parcels, as much as watering the root of a tree distributes energy to all of the tree's other parts. Consequently, for a materialist also, worship of the universal gigantic form of the Lord leads one to the right path. One need not risk being misled by approaching many demigods for fulfillment of different desires. The real entity is the Lord himself, and all others are imaginary, for everything is included in him only. Om Adhyanatamrandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Mukham Karoti Vācakam Banglandahai Kiti Green Satkripa Paramaham Kande Shri Guru Devataya Aramananda Mahadava Shri Chaitanya. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Please allow me to try to say something about this purport and this verse, drawing from other purports and other verses and other parts of Srila Prabhupada's gift to us. There are a number of interesting topics that we can discuss from this verse and purport. Srila Prabhupada begins by connecting the description of the Virata Purusha here in Srimad Bhagavatam to the exhibition of the Virata Purush in Bhagavad Gita. As we all know, Arjuna actually requests to experience, to see the Vishwarup, the Virata, the gigantic form of the Lord. Perhaps he doesn't know what he's getting into. He thinks, well, you're Krishna. You're everything. How is that? Everything is you and you're in everything. We've heard of this. Can I experience this? Krishna says, well, you can. You can, but not with these eyes. You'll need some different eyes. And with those different eyes, whoa! The first, I'm not sure if it's the first verse, but the verse that's quoted here, "Oh Vishnu, I see you devouring all people in your blazing mouths." This is how Prabhupada is connecting these two, because here in this particular verse, the Virata Purusha is described that his mouth is the fire. Fire is the mouth of Krishna. When we perform yajna, we offer everything into the fire as Krishna's mouth. Krishna accepts our offerings through the fire. And the fire consumes everything. Ultimately, this entire universe will be consumed by fire. Lord Shiva, Mahadev, Krishna, accepting that special personality, expanding himself as Mahadev. He dances. He plays his drum. Dum-dum-dum, dum-dum. They call it dum-dum drum. Right? Dum-dum-dum. He starts playing and he starts dancing. And as he starts to dance, the fire begins. And the fire expands. And the fire grows until it consumes everything. That is Krishna's mouth. As his Virat Purush, his gigantic form. So first we get this connection between Arjuna's experience of the gigantic form of Krishna and the description of that form here in Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada makes the comment that the Srimad Bhagavatam is our postgraduate study of the Bhagavad Gita. So what we hear and what we learn in the Bhagavad Gita, when we come to the Srimad Bhagavatam, we begin to enter deeper and deeper and deeper into the meanings. Whereas the description and the experience of the Virata Purusha in the Bhagavad Gita is contained in one chapter. Here, we hear about the Virata Purusha, not only here, as was pointed out in the class the other day by Hari Leela. In various places of Srimad Bhagavatam, we hear about how Krishna is everything. And everything is Krishna. And we hear about it in detail. It is one thing to have a basic idea. Okay, of course, God is everything. Everything is God. How God expresses himself in the material nature, how the material nature is created by him, how his energy, this particular verse particularly points out that what we experience, it says here, physical sound is his sense of hearing. Material fragrance is his sense of smell. By Krishna's hearing, by his ability to hear, sound is manifest. By his ability to smell, fragrance is manifest. And in later chapters, we get into this in many more detail when it describes the process of creation. So the Bhagavatam gives us this postgraduate study of how Krishna is everything. Next, in this verse, or in the purport, Srila Prabhupada begins to describe something very, very interesting. He says, even the minutest part of a living being is controlled by the empowered agency of the Lord. Prakrite kriyamanaini gunai karmani sarvashaha ahankar vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. Krishna describes in the Gita, Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha. All this nature, including our own bodies, are being conducted, they're being carried out under the modes of nature. But ahankar vimudatma, us fools with the contaminated false ego, ahankara, kartaham iti manyate. We think, karta aham, I am doing it all. I'm a great dancer. I got a loud voice. That's me. I'm thinking, here, look at, I'm sitting up here. I'm sitting on a big seat with a big voice. Seat is too big, by the way. They should lower this seat. It should be lower than the Bhagavatam. Anyway, I say this every time I come and sit here, and nothing happens, so what can I do? That's why at least I put something underneath the Bhagavatam. Keep it up. I'll just digress into a Prabhupada memory. One reason why I always think like this is because I was present in, I think it was 1973 perhaps, I think, 72 or 73 in New York City. And Srila Prabhupada was giving the Bhagavatam class. And one senior devotee, sannyasi, who was sitting and present there, he had put his chadar down. Could be categorized in three aspects. The first is his written books, the books that he wrote for us. Our ISKCON, our society, is his legacy. He has created this. It is his creation. He has given it to us as his legacy. And his own life, how he lived his life, his individual instructions, which must be seen in terms of the time and the place and the circumstance, meant to be universal. But this particular one, I think, is universal. The Shastras should be honored. This stand, for example, this was, anyway, I had some part in getting this stand made, because it's actually a law in ISKCON, although not followed everywhere, that the stand for the Bhagavatam should be more elaborate, more developed than the seat for the speaker. So a couple of little lessons to impart here. Anyway, kartaham. We all think we are doing. When we play the kartals, we're thinking, I'm playing the kartals. When we're speaking, I'm sitting here and I'm speaking, right? It's not some robot. But this is not actually fully correct. Here Prabhupada points out that even the minutest part of a living being, the cells themselves, the hairs in our bodies, the movements, they're all under control. And what's more, it's not only the gunas, it's not only some sort of abstract material energy which is operating. They're actually living beings, devatas. This is quite incredible. But it is Krishna's plan, it is Krishna's way to make things happen, to operate, to make everything happen, not through like a machine. When Krishna creates this material world, it's not like some philosophers in different schools, they purport that the world is like, who accept God. They accept the existence of God, but they describe God as like the supreme clockmaker, right? Who is so intelligent, so great, that he or it, or whatever, creates, but then it just runs. Nature just runs like a machine. And he or it or whatever is aloof. I can't remember there's a name for this. Maybe it's deism or anyway, there's a name for this school of thought. But that's not the fact, according to Bhagavatam. According to our Shastras, according to the Vedas, when Krishna creates, he does have a system, as we'll be hearing later on in the Bhagavatam, how things manifest in different ways through his body, through his sense of smell, fragrance comes. Through his hearing, sound comes. Through his senses, things manifest. And once it's all manifest, he continues to control it. It remains his body. This is the lesson of this Virata Purusha. We are in and part of the body of God. This, everything we see, everything we experience, this is all God's body. His body. And he controls this through his agencies, through his various energies. And the ones being described here are the devatas. The devatas. 83, what is it? 83 million? 33 million, I'm sorry. I'm getting mixed up with the species of life and the demigods. So there's 33, is it? No, it's 330, it's 33 crore. So it's 330 million, right? We got that mixed up in our early days. We heard 33 million, but it's actually 33 crore. Am I correct? Who, scholars? Right, wrong? 33 crore or 33 million? Or 30, what is it? 33 crore, right? So that's 330 million. The population of the United States. Okay? So just imagine that every person in the United States was in charge of some part of your body. Okay? Maybe a little part. Maybe just, a little, this particular hair or what, who knows? And don't ask me how this works, because I have no idea. I have no idea. How do these jivas, because they're jivas. They're the same energy that we are. How do they control the movements? Who knows? Hare Krishna. The yogis, they work at this. They work to get in touch with all of these devatas. They are able to, I never studied, but Sri Aurobindo is a well-known philosopher, yogi in India. And he talks about his form of yoga where he went down to the cell. He became like conscious at the cell level. Somehow, anyway. So that is the yogic system, to get into this energetic field which is full of life, and to connect with all of these different devatas in such a way that they then cooperate with the yogi's desires for mystic power. So they're all there. All of these devatas. Engaged in Krishna's service. To work this world for his purpose, for his own enjoyment sometimes, when he comes to enjoy his lila, or to work his love for us who have turned our backs, to give us an opportunity to explore, but ultimately to learn who we are. Not kartaham iti manyate. That's not us. That's not who we are. We're simple parts of Krishna. And if we worship and serve Him, everything is taken care of. That's the next point that Srila Prabhupada comes to. There's no need to worship these demigods, although, yes, they have power, they have agency in our lives, but they're all the servants of Krishna. They're all Krishna's servants. So Prabhupada describes that just by watering the root of a tree, all energy is distributed to the tree's other parts. So worship, here he describes the universal gigantic form of the Lord, leads one to the right path. One need not risk being misled by approaching many demigods for fulfillment of different desires. This, let's see if I can find it here. I looked it up. This is actually well stated in the Bhagavatam, 4:31-14. Yatataror mula nishechanayana tripyanti tatskanda bhujopashakaha pranopaharachcha yatendriyanam tataiva sarvahadamachuteja. Translation: as pouring water on the root of a tree energizes the trunk, branches, twigs, and everything else, and as supplying food to the stomach enlivens the senses and limbs of the body, simply worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead through devotional service automatically satisfies the demigods who are parts of that Supreme Personality. So this principle, this fundamental principle of spiritual science, everything is part of Krishna. By serving Krishna, it is just like watering the root of a tree. Everything is taken care of. This is described as the very definition of faith. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 2262, Shraddha sabde, Vishwas kahe, Sudridishnishtoi, Krishne bhakti koile sarva karma krita hoy. Krishne bhakti koile sarva karma krita hoy. Shraddha is confident, firm faith that by rendering transcendental loving service to Krishna, one automatically performs all subsidiary activities. Such faith is favorable to the discharge of devotional service. Krishna bhakti koile. By performing Krishna bhakti, sarva karma krita hoy. All other karma, worship of demigods, worship of ancestors, this performance, that performance, it's all taken care of by worshiping Krishna. So, lastly, Srila Prabhupada ends the purport. The real entity is the Lord Himself, and all others are imaginary. Imaginary. For everything is included in Him only. Now we are talking about the Virata Purusha these days in Srimad Bhagavatam class. We first hear about the Virata Purusha in the first canto, maybe it's another, but it's 1:330. Etad rupam bhagavato hyarupasya chidatmanaha Maya gunaya virachitam mahadhadibir atmani. Translation. The conception of the Virat, universal form of the Lord as appearing in the material world is... What word am I looking for? What word am I looking for? Imaginary. Temporary? What did you say? Temporary? Bing. This was a game show. We never like. Bah. Imaginary. Bing. You get a prize. Imaginary. Imaginary. Imaginary? What do we have to do with imagine? I mean, it is to enable the less intelligent and neophytes to adjust to the idea of the Lord's having form. But factually, the Lord has no material form. But we just got through talking about how the world is God. What was that Krishna displayed to Arjuna? Prabhupada elaborates in the purport that the conception of the Lord known as the Vishwarupa or the Virat Rupa is particularly not mentioned along with the various incarnations of the Lord, because all the incarnations of the Lord mentioned above are transcendental, and there's not a tinge of materialism in their bodies. So the Virat Rupa is not mentioned as an incarnation. What is it? Is it Krishna's form, or is it... what is it? Prabhupada goes on, as Paramatma or Supersoul, the Lord is within each and every material form, even within the atoms. But the outward material form is but an imagination, both for the Lord and for the living being. It's not only the Virata Rupa is imaginary form of Krishna. This body, your bodies, the whole thing, it's all imaginary. Oh, wait a minute. Am I drifting here? Jagan Mithya, Brahma Satya, Jagan Mithya. Wait a minute. Am I getting lost here? Is it real? Is it not real? Let's try to get some help here. The present forms of the conditioned souls are also not factual. The conclusion is that the material conception of the body of the Lord as Virat is imaginary. Both the Lord and the living beings are living spirits and have original spiritual bodies. Back to the purport for today. The real entity is the Lord Himself, and all others are imaginary, for everything is included in Him only. Maya. This is Maya. We are all entrapped in Maya. Maya means we are thinking this world, this body, and all this material energy to be the real thing. It's not. My proposal is that it is real and imaginary. It is real and illusory. That when Prabhupada uses the term imaginary here, he's using it in the sense of illusory. Not that it has no existence. It's simply imagination. There's no reality to it. It is real, but it is illusory. And the conception of difference, the conception of independence of ourselves, of the world, is the foundation of this illusion. To break through this illusion of independence, to break through this illusion of the world as independent from God, the Virata Purusha is described. In order to give us, neophytes, a path to seeing Krishna everywhere, by seeing the energy of Krishna as it's manifest, not through an imaginary sense of independence, but through a better imagination as Krishna. It is still an imagination. It's not his actual form as Krishna and Rama and Govinda and Varaha and the Shringadev, where these are transcendental forms. The material energy is, yes, it is his form because it is his. It's his energy. But the specifics, the eye, in Jiva Goswami's commentary on this same verse, he makes a comment how, these descriptions are not literal. They're there in order to give us a way to see the world as Krishna and to gradually elevate towards the personal, more personal, direct experience of Krishna in his eternal form. So, these are the various points of this verse and purport that I felt we could explore. I hope that any mistakes I've made will be forgiven. And I invite you to share your own comments and any questions you might have in the time that we have. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji, so much. Just some days back in this same chapter we have heard the yogis should meditate on the form of the Virat Purusa. And the concluding statement here, Srila Prabhupada says, everything else is imaginary but Krishna.
Yes.
So how the two contradictions, the yogis should meditate on the Virat Purusa.
Yes.
And hear this statement. So please explain.
Generally, my understanding, and I would have to go back to read that particular verse in purport, but often when Srila Prabhupada describes the yogis, he's referring to those persons who are practicing a system of yoga designed to bring them deeper and deeper and deeper into the material reality until they actually come to Paramatma. So to reach Paramatma, the super soul, who is within this world. They're advised to begin at the top, to begin seeing Paramatma as everything. And gradually, thus, as like here we see the sense of smell, and I think somewhere later we'll hear about prana being some element of the Vishwarup, and so by being able to connect everything, the yogis through their tapasya and their meditation on the energy, the material energy, they're able to go deeper and deeper until they actually can see Paramatma. That is my understanding. But I don't know enough about the yogis and what they do. It's always bewildered me how they get these powers and what they do, Anyway, you have to go to the Himalayas, I guess, and find some cave and talk to some 200-year-old yogi and see what they're doing. So I didn't answer your question. So, you have another one?
Oh, one more. Sarvata panipadam tat, sarvata akhisiro mukham, sarvata shrutimat loke, sarvam abrutya tishtati. So this is the form of localized Paramatma or Brahman realization.
For the yogis.
For the yogis.
The yogis desire to experience Paramatma, to come in, to realize Paramatma. Some yogis want mystic powers, but the yoga system of Ashtanga yoga system is meant to bring you into samadhi, in awareness of Paramatma, beyond Brahman. The Jnani system is meant to bring you into the conception of Brahman, Jnana Yoga. But both Jnana Yoga is described, I think, here or in another place. All of these yoga systems only succeed when there's some bhakti. Therefore, here for the yogis, like you said, they must worship Krishna, but because they're not attracted somehow. They're not attracted to worshiping Krishna, so they're advised to worship Krishna, but as Virata Purusha. So their bhakti enables, in that form, gives them, how is it? Yedyatam mam prapadyante tam stathaiva bhajami aham. Krishna sees their bhakti to him in that little sense, and he rewards them with their desires. Okay, Hare Krishna. Yes, we'd have a few minutes.
Prabhuji, thank you for the class. Bro, I wanted to just verify where I understood. So the material world is imaginary. Virat Purusha is imaginary. So basically, if you see anything different from Krishna, separate from Krishna, that becomes imaginary. Is that?
That's an imagination.
That is an imagination. So
yes. In other words, if you see something, to see something as separate from Krishna is an imagination.
What basically imaginary the term is coming? That's what it means?
There's two things, because there's a positive imagination and a negative imagination. We also are advised to imagine. We all must use our imagination. Imagination is not bad when it's used in Krishna's service. We can all imagine. Prabhupada very specifically talks about in chanting. We can imagine our hearts to be like a throne. We can imagine a jeweled throne. We can imagine inviting Krishna to sit in our hearts. So this kind of imagination, or how you should say, visualization is positive and part of devotional service, to visualize. Similarly, the Virata Purusha is a way to use our imagination to see Krishna by seeing, oh, the trees, they're the hairs on his body. So Bhagavatam gives us a standard way to see the world. It's not actually Krishna's body in the same way that Shyamasundar, Govinda, is Krishna. But it is still real. And our the presentation is meant to use our imagination to connect with him. That's my understanding.
Point about the number of demigods in 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 14th chapter, 5th verse, Srila Prabhupada quotes Srila Madhvacharya and gives the count. There are 90 million demigods and 70 million sages, just as an FYI. 90 million demigods.
90 million and 70 million. Okay, that's 160. So then let's see, what country would that be like?
Just as an FYI. Hare Krishna.
Anyway, there are a lot. Whatever number there are quite a lot. Hare Krishna. Thank you very. Oh, yes. Last question.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, thank you so much for revealing this positive imagination and very nicely. I had one comment and question. Comment is about, thank you for the anecdote which you told about Prabhupada valuing Srimad Bhagavatam. And how we value things is what actually, as the progress means, what we value.
What we value, yes.
And you said that it's a ISKCON law also. That so can you tell us where it is, like where it is followed, where we can see how to do it in our temple or like that, you know, valuing Srimad Bhagavatam.
I've seen a few. I mean, I like the Mumbai setup. I like the way they, in Mumbai, the setup of the Vyasasana and the Bhagavatam stand. I've seen that. It's. I believe that one's quite nice.
Radha Gopinath temple, Chaupati.
Chaupati. Yes, they also have a very nice arrangement in Radha Gopinath Mandir. Yeah. Both are good. Juhu is also good. At least that's what I've seen on the YouTube. It's not, I actually like the way they do it in the Goswami temples, where you have this, it's all one, and there's a stand. I mean, this is digressing, but if you go to any, at least Radha Damodar temple, there's it's long, and then the seat, there's a seat in the back for the person to sit, but it's very obvious that this is the Bhagavatams. I like that, but anyway, at least here we have something nicely carved, and there's and so on. But it should be higher. That's.
Another day, His Holiness Bhakti Purushottam Maharaj made the same comment, which you said now, and you said that you said earlier also.
I've said every time I sit here, I say the same thing.
Practically every.
And one day I brought a piece of wood, and I put it down at the bottom so that the Bhagavatam could be there. But now it's gone. So anyway, if anyone has some power. Hare Krishna. I think the seat has to be, the reason for the height of the seat is because of that camera. Okay, so the camera, so they have to have the seat high, so that's okay. But then they have to raise the